From our studios in beautiful Mandan, North Dakota, along the mighty Missouri River, here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And actually a correction to that. We are sitting in the sunshine in the Grand Hall here at the Alaris Center here in Grand Forks, North Dakota. We are covering the AAV Summit that's going on here. Sitting next to me is the project manager from KLJ, Daniel Wagner. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing great. This is a very sunny spot we are in right now.
It's a very sunny spot. We want to apologize to the people who are maybe following us on Meerkat right now, because I don't even know if they can even see through the sunshine that's there, but we appreciate you being on as well. So, Jim, how was your weekend?
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was out of town for a little bit. Went out of town on Friday, took the day off Friday, took a little day trip, got back, and was hitting the books the rest of the weekend.
So did you catch the game between UND and NDSU?
No, I did not. I've talked to some very happy people, though, who did catch the game.
Well, I guess it depends on what side you were voting for there. But I think a lot of people are just happy that the game happened.
Yeah.
So, and not to segue here real quick, but, of course, Daniel, you were actually at the game.
Yeah, we were there doing a little tailgating like I'm sure most of the eastern part of North Dakota was doing at that game. And we actually, I have my own UAV that I took up and took some shots of the event and got to see the magnitude of people there. It looked like a small city in the middle of Fargo, all green or green and yellow, just all amalgamated there at the dome. So it's very cool to see.
So I'm curious now, did you have anybody come up to you while you were flying your drone over the tailgate, wondering what you were doing or if they had any concerns or anything?
You know, it's surprising. Everybody seems to know what a remote control for a drone looks like. And so after I launched it, people had not, you really couldn't see it from where I was flying it just based on the cloud cover. And so, but everybody knew what I was doing. And a lot of people, when I was working with it, you know, would be whispering, "Hey, he's got a drone. He's got a drone. He's got a drone. What is he taking a picture of?" And then, you know, immediately everybody looked to the sky trying to find it.
Sure. Anybody else that was taking any photographs or anything with the drone?
Not in the air. There's a lot of photography on the ground.
Sure.
But thankfully, we were the only one in the air. We could freely fly around and take pictures as needed, and it turned into a really high quality product that we hope to use for later, just as keepsakes.
So you're using and I know a lot of people listening probably have no idea what I'm about ready to say, but there's, of course, some major players when it comes to UAVs or drones, and one of them is DJI, and you have one of the latest ones called the Phantom 3, correct?
That's correct. We have the Phantom 3 Pro.
Okay. So did you fly a Phantom 1 or 2 before?
No, I jumped right to the 3. Initially we had tested a little bit on a 2, a Phantom 2, and then moved directly to the 3, thinking that was the latest and greatest. That's the one to get, and so we purchased that one with the idea of having all the new options.
Sure, and of course you're one of the lucky people because there's a lot of people waiting for that, and you already have it. So would you say that flying the Phantom 3 is a little bit easier? They have some new things they've added to it that actually make it easier to fly. And the first thing I think of is the liftoff. So can you tell me a little bit about how it works with the Phantom 3?
Sure, it is really easy. If you have a phone, a smartphone, whether it's Android or Apple, it doesn't really matter. But once you download the app, the app kind of walks you through and actually has a beginner mode which you can start with. So it's very easy to start up, to fly. Everything's very touch button. You almost don't have to grab the remote control to fly it until you're ready. And so, but once you are ready, once you've done some of the beginning modes, there's some more advanced features that you can use. A couple of them are following waypoints along the way, meaning that you mark the trail that you want to fly. And then there's other ones where it's simple, like follow me. A lot of sports enthusiasts and people that are doing active things, but they still want to be filmed. It's a great feature that just came out through their app and allows you to be active without having to worry about where the drone is sitting at the time.
So the job for the follow me feature for Jim and I, for example, would be easy because we're just always sitting for doing this, so we'll never have to do anything. Sure. But if you have an active lifestyle, of course, and there are more and more drones that are coming out with this feature, In fact, I forget the brand name, but there's actually one that you can launch from your hand. It's about the size of your palm that actually does a very similar thing. Of course, the Phantom is a much larger UAV and can do a lot more than just follow you along. So, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. So, what is your impression of the summit so far?
I'm very impressed by the summit. I've been to a few of these so far throughout the last few years that we've actually started having designated summits for this kind of technology, and this year is bigger than any of the other years we've been to, and the amount of people, exhibitors, vendors, and just general interest is huge. Especially this year, it seems we have a whole another portion of the event that we didn't have before, which is the commercialized side.
Right.
The opportunity wasn't there before because the FAA wasn't allowing us to get the permits just yet. They were going through the process, figuring everything out, and now with the guidelines and the exemption process that they have, we have this whole commercial aspect at the event that we didn't have before.
So, of course, while we're here, even today, we're going to see some demonstrations of drones. In fact, I believe it starts here just in a few minutes. Unfortunately, we're not sitting in front of that, so this time you're not going to hear that the bee sound coming through the microphones, but know that we'll have some of that going on. And so we'll be capturing some footage of that a little bit later on so people can hop on the techwrench.com and check that out, too. So, of course, we're having some major announcements here. In fact, this is basically the people that are here are a who's who of the UAV industry, correct?
As far as UAV goes, this is kind of your Hollywood.
Yep. And in my opinion, anyway, and I'm a little biased, I guess, when I say this, but I would say is that North Dakota leads this industry now.
You're absolutely right. With the testing site here in Grand Forks, being as leading edge as it is, they've been granted a lot of leniency and a lot more operating parameters than most of the rest of the testing sites. And that just goes to show you how committed the rest of the nation is to this particular testing site and the UAV community, how much they support what we're doing in this area.
Right. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Grand Sky here in a little bit. We have Tyler Okerlund with the Center of Innovation here in Grand Forks. They'll be joining us a little bit with some major news, by the way. So you'll certainly want to be staying tuned for that. And after the break, everybody, project manager from KLJ, Daniel Wagner, will continue the conversation with me as far as UAVs. I'm at a loss of words here, Daniel, so I guess we'll just take it out there, everybody, and we'll come on back shortly.
Right now, 66.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Super Talk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek at facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or thetechranch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank our listeners across the country and around the world who follow us on the Blueberry Network, on Tuned In. Of course, we're on the Tech Podcast, The Tech is Here. We're on the Roku, iTunes, and, of course, our own app, Radio Pup. And the new one, of course, is Meerkat, so you can join us on Meerkat as well. Sitting next to me at the Grand Forks Solaris Center at the UAV Summit going on here. Of course, it's all about drones, baby. And it's project manager Daniel Wagner with KLJ. Daniel, we were just talking a little bit about what's going on here at the summit. Of course, a major announcement this morning with Grand Sky. And we're going to let Tyler kind of give that news out a little bit later here in the broadcast. But you want to stay tuned for that. As announcement center John Holden this morning and major news coming out of Grand Forks this morning. Tell me a little bit about solar and drones. What's going on in that space?
So there's actually a portion of this summit that I'll talk about that. There's a presentation on it, and the specifics of it are for the presentation. But the general idea is when drones fly, fixed-wing or rotorcopter, the different brands you can pick from, they only have so much time in the air before they have to change out their batteries. They're all mostly battery operated.
Right, and I know I own a couple of them, and if I get 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I'm doing pretty good. And what is yours?
Yeah, I try to limit it to 20 minutes or less. It's just to be able to fly it and then to land it again. and safely land it, not bringing it in very fast. It's better to limit it to about 20 minutes.
So the challenge that a lot of people have with UAVs and companies is that you're very limited to the amount of time you can put it up in the air. So from that, we enter solar power.
Right. The idea behind it is basically you're attaching solar power to the drone itself. And the idea behind that is if you can get enough draw from the solar panels themselves to fuel the UAV, you can fly up there basically in minutes. And that's a cost savings when you think about the time it takes to have to bring a drone, land it, recharge the batteries, put a new battery in, and just the overall cost of having to operate it with multiple batteries. It saves on both ends.
So do you see this with smaller UAVs, or is this going to be larger fixed-wing aircraft that we're talking about here?
I think initially it'll be a larger scale. Solar panels have come a long way throughout the years, but in order to keep something of this size and this much of a draw in the air, I think the idea will be to start with a larger scale and eventually work it down to the smaller models.
And you're absolutely right with the technology. In fact, I'm sitting here powering my laptop and my phone. Tablet, I guess, is okay with power right now, but I actually have a solar device that's charging this stuff as we're using them, obviously because we're sitting in this unbelievable sunshine. It's actually very, very bright here.
Yeah, but I won't complain. It's September. It's probably going to be 70 degrees out today, and there's no snow on the ground.
Yeah, you got to love it. Got to love it. So yeah, there's some cool things there as far as solar and UAVs go. Now, talk a little bit about the exemptions that the FAA is starting to allow companies to have, and why is that important? And also, can anybody fly a drone? And are there different degrees of drones that a person can get, for hobbyists compared to a commercial? Let's get into that space a little bit.
Sure. The exemption process is, as most people find it, it's very detail-orientated. You have to know what you're going to be using.
I'm going to stop you just for a second there. I think we should probably explain what an exemption is.
Sure. So an exemption is actually a process that you file with the FAA, Federal Aviation Association, to get exemption from some of the guidelines, the small UAV guidelines that they have put out there for the public use. Now, it's mostly generated for commercial applications, and that's why it's important to file for an exemption.
So if there's a videographer, for example, that wants to start using drones to film events or whatever, similar to what maybe you did this weekend, on a commercial level. Now, you were out there testing, and there's a difference between that and what we're talking about here. But if you want to charge for your services, then you have to go through the process of getting an exemption.
That's correct. Anything commercial, as far as commercial operations goes, and it can be very small in the idea of what a commercial use is. And the definition of commercial use is basically, are you receiving some sort of benefit from that? Are you exchanging goods for it? Are you getting paid, or will you get paid because of that video or photos or something else?
Okay. So if I want to put a drone up in the air and I want to record a family event, but I'm not getting any other benefit, nobody's paying me anything for it, Grandma's not making me my favorite macaroni salad because I'm doing this, I'm okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the gray area with that. If you were to ask the FAA or somebody in the industry, is that okay? They'd probably look at you and say, yeah, that's probably okay. But as soon as there's some sort of transaction from that, let's say that same wedding that the bride and groom decide to use that footage for something like, fund their honeymoon, and they start selling it to people for it, that could be considered a commercial use.
Or if they decided later on that they wanted to get some DVDs of it or something like that.
Right,
okay.
Right. And then the transaction becomes commercial.
Okay.
And that's when the exemption process will kick in.
Right.
And so the UAV guidelines, as they state today, have certain restrictions that would allow people to still operate, but under some assumptions. Some of them are, how high you can fly, and others are who can actually fly them. And so the exemption gives you, a permit allows you to kind of circumvent those, to get what you need to do the commercial operation, but without having to go through all the steps that exemption or the UAV guidelines placed on them.
So how, now North Dakota has become, the hotbed, so to speak, for all of this technology, and the state itself, the upper two-thirds now has some type of special designation. Are you familiar with that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So why don't you talk a little bit about that, and how does that play into, getting an exemption, or do you even need an exemption because of the special status that the state has?
So the status that the state has comes through the testing site here in Grand Forks, and it's a COA, a Certificate of Authorization. And what that allows for the state basically to do is operate the smaller UAVs through the testing site. If you were to go out on your own and go through the process of operating a UAV for commercial use, you would still have to abide by the exemption process in order to do so. But the blanket COA makes it a lot easier for the testing part of drones in the entire state. And having the testing site out of Grand Forks is great for where it is in the region, but a lot of people are very curious in the western half of the state of how those type of technologies are going to play out in, say, the oil field.
Sure. Yeah, pipeline surveil and that type of thing is going to be a big deal, I would think, in the future here. So, if you wanted to work with the test site here in Grand Forks, let's say you're a wedding photographer or you're an oil company who wants to surveil a pipeline, can you go through the test site here to get an exemption, or do you still have to go through the FAA for that then?
The testing site, one thing that they are up here are personal. We've worked with them in the past, and they are very good at what they do. And Bob Becklin, I'll give a shout-out to him because I just saw him walk by here, but Bob and his crew are very good at what they do, and it shows because of all the publicity they've got throughout the rest of the testing site. But they could technically go through the testing site to see if the product would work, if it would be something that company wanted to, say, take wedding photos for or wanted to. But as far as the exemption process goes, they can help you with it, but it wouldn't be something you could piggyback off of for your own commercial use.
Okay. Interesting. So now you were talking something else about lighting. So explain that a little bit. I didn't catch everything you were talking about earlier there.
About the lighting, you're saying?
I thought it was lighting that you were talking about.
I don't know. The line of sight stuff we were talking about.
Maybe so, yes. Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, it's the line of sight is part of the restrictions that come with operating UAVs, UASs. It's a safety thing. The size of the drones that we're talking about for the small UAV are about the size of a large bird, and after a while, you won't be able to see them visually in the air, and for safety purposes, they want to keep you within a line of sight.
Well, I have a couple of different types of drones, and one of them I fly manually, okay? And one of the challenges that I have is once I get so far out, I cannot tell what's front and what's back of the craft anymore.
Right.
And I'm sure you've probably run into this too, right?
Right.
Even though they got different colored blades on them and whatever, once it's a quarter mile away, it's still line of sight. But if I think it's going to the left, if the front of the aircraft's to the left, I start trying to fly it that way, and all of a sudden it's going farther away. So line of sight is very, very important when it comes to this stuff, of course.
And that's one of the reasons why the testing site was up here in this area is that we have big open skies in North Dakota area, and so having line of sight is a lot different here than it is anywhere else. But at the size these are at, it's almost non-existent at that quarter-mile mark for the size we're at. Once you get into the bigger ones, you can see at half-mile. But everything that revolves around line of sight has to do with your own eyes. You can't use optics to locate them.
Okay.
If you wanted to fly it yourself and you just wanted to know where it was, that's a great idea to have a pair of binoculars nearby. But if you were flying for commercial use, that's one of the guidelines inside of that UAV is that you have to be your own eyes. You can't digitally enhance them at all. You can't be using a scope or periscope or binoculars or whatever you thought you could use for it to locate it. It has to be just your own eyes.
That's interesting because I know that one of the things that Google Glass was working on is the ability to magnify those glasses by just saying whatever, magnify or whatever. And so you could do a 2X or a 4X or an 8X type of zoom and not with Google Glass. There's another company that's making it, but something similar to that. So you couldn't use those legally.
Right. We actually tested with the Google Glass for a while when we first got into the drones. And one of the things that we really were interested in was some of the technology behind it.
All right. After the break, everybody, we will continue our conversation with Daniel Wagner, and we'll be looking for a special announcement from Tyler Uckerland about the announcement this morning. So come on back.
Right now, 66.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
And here we are live from Grand Forks at the Alaris Center at the AUV Summit, and joining us from the Center of Innovation. I'll get it right here, Tyler. Center for Innovation. Problem is I can't read anything because of the sun, so I got everything here. But anyway, Tyler Okerlund, he is with the Center for Innovation and a regular at these type of events. And we're glad to have you on the show. So can you tell us a little bit about what Grand Sky is going to do, and what is Grand Sky doing for Grand Forks?
Well, Grand Sky is going to be providing, I think, a good sum of jobs around Grand Forks, around the county exactly. I think about 3,000 or 4,000 jobs here. So what we're doing here as a community is to try to support Grand Sky, is to make sure that we're on top of everything when it comes to anything techy, innovative, and of course, we want to make sure that we're there for all the UAS type of technologies. And along with Grand Sky, they are a tenant of ours at the Center for Innovation right now. So we want to make sure that we are playing ball with them every step of the way, so that we can be up to date with everything that's going on.
So maybe for people who aren't familiar with Grand Sky, can you give listeners maybe some idea as to what Grand Sky is?
Well, Grand Sky is a UAS tech park, and it is the first in the nation to actually be in with regards to UAS technologies, and it's like a business park. And so what it entails is Grand Sky Development with Tom Sawyer and Jeff Donahoe. They put together a proposal to make sure that they are in with the county of Grand Forks and along with the city of Grand Forks to kind of make this happen. And they put together a 50-year enhanced use lease that is with the United States Air Force at Grand Forks Air Force Base. It's on a couple hundred acres of land out there. It's the old alert pad that where the old KC-130 tankers were. And so basically they're going to be taking over that pad, rebuilding, and constructing a brand new tech park out there geared toward UAS technology. So it's being that North Dakota is one of 6 in the nation to have a UAV test flight zone. They figured this would be a terrific opportunity to bring it to County of Grand Forks and North Dakota.
All right, and with that, there was a great announcement made this morning by Senator Holden, and I want you to tell the world what it is that's going to be happening up here.
Well, General Atomics signed on to be the second anchor tenant, along with Northrop Grumman, and they are going to be they signed a 10-year lease to be in with Grand Sky Development. So it's a huge win for, I guess, Team Grand Sky and Team North Dakota on this, and also the City of Grand Forks and County of Grand Forks, because along with the major announcements of the two large companies such as Northrop and General Atomics, that is only going to bring more people and more interest into the Grand Sky Tech Park, because it'll bring more companies in, and a lot of people like to follow the big fish, I guess you could say. And
So do you see already companies coming to Grand Forks, whether they're located in the park or not, but coming to Grand Forks to be in the zone, so to speak, with UAV?
Well, yes, there's a couple companies that are trying to put together data centers right now to have the UAS technologies available, and so there's a couple of them at the Center for Innovation right now. They're just they're small tenants, just startup companies. And eventually, when Grand Sky actually gets fully built, in the years to come, then those companies will, I think, be moving on once they become larger. And so, again, they're just starting up with us, and they're eventually going to grow into something way more bigger than they are right now. And that's exactly what we are helping them accomplish.
Okay. Well, Daniel, what do you see as a benefit to maybe an established company like KLJ and yourself as an operator, the benefits of having, the test site here, these new companies come into the state? Expand on that a little bit.
Sure. The
the thing I see the best opportunity from a company standpoint is the new flush of technology that comes in. And it's not always just the UAS side of things, but all the other developmental things, software, developing of technology for other groups that our whole industry is based upon the idea of technology. And so we could definitely benefit from just all the ancillary work that comes out of that, not just the UAS side of things. In conjunction with that, the testing center that's up here and the new anchor tenant with their idea behind doing training for UAS, we're going to benefit from a lot of very tech-savvy people coming out of schools and out of these training centers, ready to hit the ground running for our industry.
Okay. Tyler, do you see a lot of collaboration going on between companies that are locating here right now?
There's small developments going on right now, but eventually they're going to be expanding a little bit more once more companies start finding the ground here. And I know that there's one company that's, I think, trying to get like I mentioned before, with a data center. They're trying to work at getting that all set up here. So it's in the works, but it's nothing major yet. But we're helping them move along with it currently right now. And then there's a couple, like I said, little companies here at the Center for Innovation where I know we're helping them get involved with the UAS background and everything, and they want to make sure that they can expand off that as well.
So you're a parent of high school students, and you're maybe coaching your children into a field, a direction to go. Maybe they're strong in math. Maybe they have a love of video games, that type of thing. Can you tell me a little bit about what maybe the University of North Dakota offers as far as maybe somebody that's interested in getting into this industry?
Well, one thing that UND does offer that is very different than other universities in the nation is that they actually have an unmanned aerial systems degree. And I think that's the most open type of field you can get into right now. I think that's one thing that a lot of students are going to take a high interest in because, I mean, everybody plays, the simulator games and anything else that's online right now. And those first-person shooter games, it's very similar to something that they're developing right now with UAV technologies. But then also the thing that UND has is one of the best aviation programs in the nation. So I mean, even if you're coming here to do commercial aviation, be an airline pilot or a private pilot, I mean, you're still going to be coming here for UAV technologies as well, because that's going to make you excel a little bit higher. Because I think as technology develops and for the future, those type of jobs are probably going to be becoming more open and prominent, and higher paying to some extent because of all the things that people are doing and all the companies that want to make things better within the United States.
And do you see any type of slowdown coming in the future in this technology?
No, I think there's the gas pedal's on full throttle right now because people are still coming. They're coming aware, or they're coming up with many new things every day, and so I don't think it's ever slowing or it's going to slow.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I actually think we haven't even scratched the surface yet as to what this technology is going to bring to our lives in the future. And what's interesting about this too is that the people that I have talked to that have graduated, or gone through a course or whatever, and they are flying UAV for a company or whatever. These really are not low-paying jobs. In fact, I talk to people who graduate and are making $80,000 or $100,000 a year right out of college. That's just incredible.
It is, and I think to speak for some of us that we're still not up to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like I need to get in that. I need to go back to school for that.
Where can I get a Wii or an Xbox or something and go back here? Yeah, it's amazing. So I guess what we're talking about here is that if you actually have children that are soon to graduate from high school or whatever, this is something that you need to seriously take a look at. If they love gaming and they're doing these simulator games or whatever right now, this is really, I'm not going to say that there are worlds apart between what you're doing on a gaming system and flying a UAV, of course, but you have some basic training already, and that they like this. Yeah. So I would certainly go in that direction if you're looking at that.
Yeah, and I can give a big shout-out to Bismarck Public Schools, though, too. I mean, I know they have a learning center there for high school kids that are interested in aviation. I know when I was in Bismarck in June for the EDND conference, I believe, and that's when I ran into you again, there was when they gave us a tour, and they were showing how kids are constructing, or students, high school students are constructing an actual aircraft. And they're learning from hands-on experience and how to do that. And then also a lot of them are kind of getting into that UAV technology, and learning how to fly, virtually. And then there's also some things that they're doing with actual aircraft, or like little mini UAVs. So I mean, that's a big thing that I know that Bismarck's kind of got going up there. And it was actually really interesting to learn that high school, there's so much interest within the high school students that they can do that. And maybe we need to get something else like that up in Grand Forks or around the state. But I mean, I know Bismarck has a good thing going right there.
That's very, very cool. It really is. So, are you Daniel? Are you a self-taught pilot, or did you actually take some courses anywhere?
I'm self-taught. I guess self-falling, whatever is the case. No, what we were talking about earlier, they're very easy to fly. They're very forgiving. A lot of the smaller UAVs are. You can get complicated if you want to, but for the models that you see around out in the day, out on YouTube, those are really easy to fly. They're very, very step by step, so you can learn pretty quickly.
Sure. On the commercial side, though, of course, there is going to be, like you said, can be very, very complicated as well, and that's probably where a degree really comes into play, because understanding the mechanics of, and that's the problem that I have when I fly a drone. I've never been to flight school or whatever, so I don't understand how to trim and do all this other stuff that goes along with these type of craft. And I think it's important to know that.
Absolutely. The thing we always forget is this: whenever we're taking a drone up into the air, it's aeronautics, and it has to do with the same flight principles as if you were a pilot. And understanding that makes or breaks your flight, especially if you're going to collect aerial imagery. That's an aerial photography field, and there's a whole designation in universities for that.
All right, and after the break, everybody, we will continue the conversation with David Dvorak with Field of View. Tyler, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Marlo.
All right, take care, everybody, or take care, and we'll see everybody back shortly.
Right now, 77.
Our own radio station. Not Fargo, not the Twin Cities. Proud to be Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we're broadcasting live from the Alaris Center here in Grand Forks, North Dakota at the AUV Summit. And sitting next to me is David Dvorak. He is the Chief Executive Officer. I was going to say CEO. I should have just done that. Of Field of View. And Field of View is a company that is actually based here in Grand Forks. And I wanted to have David come on because I think it's interesting what they do. And we're going to talk a little bit about your company, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on, Marlo. Excited to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what Field of View does.
In a nutshell, Field of View makes camera systems and sells software to help people do agricultural aerial imaging and mapping, primarily with drones.
Okay, so if I'm a farmer, I can go buy a drone, fly it myself if I want to, and use your softwares and your cameras to do surveil of my crop.
Yeah, it turns out mapping's a little bit more challenging than just putting a drone up there and taking nice HD video or pictures.
No.
Yeah, I know. So we're here to help in that process with the various pieces of hardware and software that we sell to make the job a little bit easier.
Okay. So do you find farmers right now that are actually purchasing UAVs and actually using your software, or are they actually going out and finding somebody to fly them for them?
Well, there's a little bit of both. There are a few brave pioneers out there that are, muddling through the technology and trying to figure out what works. There are a handful of service providers out there, but what we're finding is there's actually more people using manned aircraft in agriculture now to fly the larger areas, so they can fly higher and fly for longer. But it's interesting how the drone technology has really pushed that into play.
So basically, your softwares right now are being used mostly on manned aircraft.
In agriculture.
In agriculture,
yep.
Okay. So over to bring the mic over to Daniel there for a second. So is this a service that you're thinking that you might be utilizing with KLJ in the future?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we see a market for that, not just in the agriculture, but just in the aerial mapping industry itself. I mean, there's aerial mapping going on right now as we speak in North Dakota, and we think we could be a good part of that.
Okay. So what kind of information, David, will you be able to, grab from a surveil of your crop using your software?
Yeah, so there's 3 type of camera systems that we typically offer. Just a high-resolution true color to get that nice detailed view of what's going on in your field. We have multispectral camera systems that look outside what we can see and actually tell you how and where your plants are stressed. And then we're just starting to get into thermal imagery so we can look at things like water stress.
Okay. So if I have, let's say, part of my land that has some type of insect infestation or something going on, I mean, is this something that I can tell with this right now?
Well, the technology is really good at telling you where the stress spot is, not necessarily what it is.
Okay.
So there are more and more research and tools looking into that, but right now it's just another tool in the toolbox to help mostly save time and directing scouting efforts.
So you can find out where the stress is at, and then you can go out and manually inspect it from there.
Right, and once you have that data, too, it's all digitized in a georeference format, so it can also be used to provide input data for things like variable rate application of fertilizer.
So moving forward now, where do you see, as a farmer, where do you see this technology benefiting you outside of the things that we're talking about right now, stress on crops and that type of thing?
I think it can just be a great management tool. They're also really fun to fly, so if people are excited to, write off an item like this and play around with it as well. So I think people will start to kind of move away from the fancy factor of these systems and really start to see where it makes sense to use them as a tool in their agricultural operations.
So do you see something like a nesting situation with a drone where it would actually go out once a day or once a week or whatever and surveil your crop, and then if it sees stress points, it will report back to your iPhone or whatever?
If there's anything I've learned in this process, is that farmers are really busy people, and that definitely would be the ideal route to go. I think there's some challenges, though, and kind of a clashing of industries. We're flying in the airspace, and so the Federal Aviation Administration has a say in what goes on there. So, there might be some challenges from being able to do that safely, but I think that's definitely the way of the future, and technology is going to be right up there to solve some of those problems.
Sure. Well, I certainly see waypoints, where you have a pre-programmed flight, and I'm just thinking out loud, but like a KLJ could offer something along those lines where you set the whole system up so that every day or every third day or whatever it goes out and checks the weather first to make sure we're not, we don't have 40-mile-an-hour winds or a rainstorm are going on, and goes out and flies its route on, and then just comes back and nests again and then charges back up and goes out 3 days later. I just absolutely see something like that, Daniel.
Yeah, and as long as we have less than 40 miles an hour wind in North Dakota, we'll be just fine.
It does happen. Look at today.
Yeah,
it's just gorgeous out there. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great opportunity for that industry for us, and I think we would see ourselves in a market like that very easily.
So what about livestock, David? I mean, is this something that you see with livestock as well?
It's something that we haven't gotten into, but with the price of beef, more and more people are asking us about that. And so we're excited to see, especially with some of the thermal camera systems that we're using, how can this technology be useful for counting, for observing of health, those type of things. So we're looking forward to working with more people to talk about the applications for that.
Okay. Anything else that might strike you as unique or different that you're seeing with some of the applications that you guys are developing?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we're really trying to automate this whole process so we can not only tell you where the stress spots are, but what might be causing that. And, our company is really focused on making sure we're having high-quality input data to be brought to that process for the agricultural researchers to be able to figure out the algorithms required to get to that point. So we're excited to be a part of that.
All right. And back to Daniel again. So we just got a couple minutes left here of the show. So why are you here?
Personally?
Yeah.
I'm here to see the new technology. I understand, just like Dave's saying, there's new technology out there that as the process goes through, it just keeps enhancing. And every time I come to one of these events, I see a new technology that's being applied to a different venue that we never even thought of before. And so I really want to see how that all plays out throughout the summit.
Okay, and David, I know you're here to show off what you have, but is there something else that you want to take away from the summit here?
Well, I just I'm always surprised about the number of really interesting things that are happening in North Dakota specifically. And so it's really fun to meet the other people here and figure out how some of the things we're doing can apply to their application and vice versa.
So anything stand out so far at the show? I know that the booths are not open up yet here, but is there somebody that maybe you visited with or something that's been brought to the forefront that you think is really amazing?
Well, I've had an opportunity to watch you talk about doing flights in the Arctic up by Hudson Bay and watching the polar bears come and check out the UAV operation. So there's a lot of things we have in North Dakota, but polar bears aren't one of them, so that's probably a good thing.
That's actually pretty interesting. So what were they doing with the polar bears? I mean, was it just something that they were...
Well, I think they're mostly just looking at wildlife, different vegetation, doing a biological observation. But, anytime you're in that type of environment, you got to be watching out for those things. So.
Okay. Daniel, anything else that you can think of? That is there something that you're here specifically to see?
Besides Dave?
Yes. Besides David, I know you two need to talk after the.
We certainly do.
Yes.
We certainly do. Yeah, some of the more fixed wing applications that are out there, the longer range, we're very interested in that. North Dakota has a lot of wide open space, and that's why we got the testing site in the first place. But the new fixed wings that are coming out and the battery storage power on them, I'm really interested to see how that's all going to play out in this new next age of technology for UAVs.
So do you, David, do you see any other maybe manufacturing going on? I know Comdell in Wahpeton is starting to develop AEVs, but is there anything else going on that you're aware of?
Well, there's more startup companies coming in the region. We're working together with a company in Grand Forks called Skyscopes. They just got their Section 333 exemption, basically a special rule that allows them to fly before the commercial rules are out. And so it's been fun to work with a company so closely in our same town and really get out and do things like mapping and some more advanced things to get this proliferated.
So on a personal level, when's the last time you flew a drone, and what did you use it for? I'm putting you on the spot here now.
Oh, boy. We test out our cameras sometimes, and we got to pop it up in the air, make sure the thing takes pictures, and make sure they work good. So, we like to provide a high-quality product, and sometimes you got to do a little bit of flying to do that.
Okay. Anything else, Daniel? I guess we're right at the end of the show here, but anything else you can think of? You can't leave me dead on the air.
No, I can't leave you dead on the air. I was just thinking, I just saw Bob back on again with the testing side. I got to go talk to those guys too. But one of the things we were talking about is all the new startup companies, and we talked about how we could get involved. That testing center is a real avenue for people if they want to get into this market but are unsure. It's a real safety net for a lot of people, and I think that the companies that are in there at the expo or are thinking of coming to this area should come check them out. It provides you a layer of security that you wouldn't otherwise have if you're just out on your own.
All right, gentlemen, I appreciate you being on the show. Again, check out David Dobrak, Field of View, and fieldofviewllc.com. I'll put that on the techranch.com. And Daniel, pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. Everybody have a great week.